The NHS is facing its toughest winter ever.
How often do you fall?
Twice a day.
Battered by a pandemic. Crippled by staff shortages.
We've got 2 patients coming in, but that's full. Oh, one is coming in at 16.
And millions across the country left waiting for care. The ambulance and its crew have been on the road for less than an hour. And Gigi and John are already responding to their third call.
GP unable to contact on the floor, so someone's fallen. It says 9 p.m. last night. She is a 78-year-old female patient, so she's quite elderly.
It's a Category 2 emergency.
They got a special alarm that they can press, but sometimes when it's they get a call in the morning because their carer has found them on the floor, but they've been there all night, basically. Thank you.
Gigi and John have to be prepared for anything.
Hello. Oh, hello. It's the ambulance.
They see and treat our most vulnerable in their most desperate moments.
Did you press your button today?
Yes.
Yes. And what did you need the ambulance for?
Because I'd fallen out of my bed.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't get up.
I see.
Elizabeth is 78. She spends most of her life in this room.
I've had knee replacement, hip replacement.
Okay.
I've got plantar fasciitis in both feet.
Oh, okay,
And my sciatic nerve is trapped.
Ouch. So you're in pain?
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
A quarter of non-life-threatening 999 calls last winter involved falls.
What are you struggling with at the minute?
Getting to my bed at night.
Elizabeth has a carer who visits 3 times a day. It's not enough.
How often do you fall?
Twice a day.
Twice a day, so quite often.
Patients like Elizabeth are more at risk than ever. This winter, they face a potential rise in flu and COVID, ambulance response times at an all-time high,
Just go forwards a little bit.
and a care system short of 165,000 staff.
Go down your back. Do you want us to bring you anything before we leave?
£1,000.
I work for the NHS.
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah, I've got no money.
All right, all the best, Elizabeth, okay? It looks like she's had quite a few ambulances, maybe probably about 200 in the last year. If there was a carer there, help her out of bed every time, get her some food. And this is what happens a lot, is if when there's no carers coming in, they tend to fall over because they need to do everything themselves.
Ambulance response times across the country are growing longer than ever. Responding to life-threatening calls takes 30% longer than before the pandemic, while getting to emergencies like heart attacks and strokes takes twice as long.
It can be quite disheartening sometimes hearing across the radio all of those calls that are waiting for an ambulance because there's no ambulances available. Patients can't be moved from A&E into those different wards or into social care, so there's no space to put the new patients when we're bringing them in, which then causes further ambulance delays.
We've been with this ambulance crew since this morning. We're on our way to see our 7th patient. We've seen 6 already, and it's only halfway through a normal shift.
It's just come in about 30 seconds ago. It's for someone who's having a severe allergic reaction. Their lips are going blue. So I'm just going to come around the back, if that's all right. See if you just take some nice big deep breaths for me.
Maggie is 9 years old. Her mother, Rochelle, called emergency services after becoming frantic with worry.
Brilliant. That's all really good. That's really good. Has anything like this ever happened before?
Like you said, 4 years ago.
What happened 4 years ago? Sorry, I think I was...
Same thing, like
Yeah.
pale face,
Yeah.
pale, and the same thing. I'm very sick, but she meant she's weak.
Yeah.
Maggie's condition is now stable, but Gigi and John decide to take her to hospital for further tests. The A&E department at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Woolwich is one of the busiest in the country. They've been facing the sort of pressure usually only seen in winter, but all through the summer, as many as 600 people a day. A job made much harder because the trust has 70 patients medically fit for discharge but can't leave because they have no community social care package in place.
The impact is huge. We describe it sort of like almost like firefighting. We adapt. We have to adapt. We have to carry on doing the best that we can for each individual patient. But I think the challenges of trying to see patients in places, in areas where we wouldn't normally see them, adds its extra layer of complexity.
Those who are admitted from A&E come through here, the Clinical Decisions Unit.
We're trying to see as many patients as we can, get their treatment as quickly as we can, but one of the challenges is obviously trying to find the right space for them. For example, in this bay, we normally have 4 patients, 4 beds, but to meet our demands, we've had to create a 5th bed, which is another person. They have to be as stable as possible because obviously there's no specific oxygen areas for them. Increases the workload for the nursing and doctor staff on a daily basis. People come here to find out what their problem is. We want to deliver that. We want to deliver the care we can. If we're not able to, get the diagnostics, if we're not able to bring them in when they need to be in, to provide the treatment when we need to, it's a challenge all round.
Anne-Marie has been a nurse for 34 years. There's little she hasn't seen.
So we've got a physio and occupational therapy assessment that says that she needs...
Every day, she fights a constant battle to try and find the right care for her patients who are well enough to leave and enough beds for those who aren't.
Moreover, for me, this is my local hospital. This is where I would bring people that mean something to me, either my friends or my family, and actually I want to know that when my friends and family need an ambulance, number one, the ambulance can get to them because they're not being held in an ED somewhere, and that then when my families come into ED and the decision is made that they need to be admitted, that actually I can then say, OK, that's fine, because don't worry, we'll have a bed for you on ward 4.
Around 500,000 people are thought to be waiting for a care assessment or funding. Carol has terminal cancer. She needs round-the-clock treatment. But rather than being treated in hospital, she's receiving community care in a hospice.
And I suppose it makes your family feel quite relieved that you're receiving such expert care.
That's right. We haven't got a big family, me and my sister, but what we have got, we love, and we like to know that we're all happy. I've never been to a hospice before. They were like a dowdy place. But when I see this, it was like going into a fairy tale. I was too proud to receive any sort of treatment, hard treatment, like machinery treatment, chemo, things like that. It would have been too hard. My body would have given up.
If you had been receiving treatment somewhere else?
Yeah, if I'd have been in a hospital.
But Carol's life-prolonging care, like other services across the social care system, is under pressure. Hospices and care homes are facing multiple challenges.
We are trying to recruit and retain staff in a limited pool and a geographical pool, but also a sense of how many staff you've got qualified with set experience within this area to do the job that we specifically do here. That growth of patient need, population, complexity of symptoms, particularly post-pandemic, where people haven't accessed healthcare in the same way over the last 2 or 3 years, you're looking at people with much later stage disease. And that's really complicated. So we'd love to do more, but our limiting factor is staffing.
Hello, Catherine. Nice to see you. Nice to see you too. How are you doing?
Even at 96, living with cancer and diabetes, Catherine is fiercely independent.
That's the patches. Right, okay. Patches.
She receives support from her local hospice and her family. But she's at risk of rapid decline. Catherine knows eventually she will need more specialist end-of-life care in the community.
I know there's no treatment for me to have to prolong my life any longer, so we'll just accept what comes my way. If it can happen at the end of my life, then I, don't mind. I'll tolerate it. I know my daughters will do everything possible for me to have a good ending, won't you? I mean, I rely on them. And they're looking after me now, and I couldn't have two better daughters, really. That makes me feel sad. I'm going to leave them behind.
Catherine knows what it's like to not have access to care. Her husband, Peter, had Alzheimer's and deteriorated rapidly in front of the family's eyes.
We had a particular incident, and it was an awful incident here. We had nobody because we weren't in the system, in the care system. We had to survive an awful 4 days with Dad here.
Without any support?
No support at all, and it was horrendous.
Rebecca has been caring for this community for a decade. Her job is now harder than ever. The patients she cares for increasingly need more specialist services, and delays throughout the healthcare system make the problem much worse.
It's quite immense pressure because the patients we tend to see, they're getting complex. There's a lot who are not able to get the care they need because of how it is nationally in terms of access.
So there are more people who need care than carers available?
Very, very much so. Yeah. So more patients are needing that, but the availability of it and the quality of care which is available is quite minimum.
Health and care must be seen as one joined-up system. All parts of it need to be supported, funded, and staffed. If one part breaks down, the other parts will too. And it's happening now. And people are suffering.
There we go, my lovely, all done.
Ashish Joshi, Sky News.